baptism of Jesus in the Jordan, is one of perhaps 3 events that are recorded in all 4 of the Gospels, right? Realize the Gospels have, some of them take this perspective on Jesus, some of them shine a light on this area. The infancy stuff really only appears in Matthew and Luke, but the baptism of Jesus appears in all 4 of the Gospels. The only other 2 events that I can think of off the top of my head are the feeding of the 5,000 and then the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus, right? Holy Week stuff. But in any case, if it appears in all 4 Gospels, it must have made a deep impact upon the apostles, the disciples, as they were going around. It must have absolutely changed their perspective of Jesus. And perhaps because of its testimony to the infinite love that God has, the election, the spirit of adoption that you and I have received through the sacrament of our own baptism. I always like to point out that God says to Jesus, "You are my beloved Son, with you I'm well pleased." Maybe modern day translation, "I'm proud of you," right? You're my beloved Son and I'm proud of you. But it's interesting because God says all of that. This whole scene takes place largely before Jesus has done anything, right? This is the beginning of his public ministry. It's not the end. It's not like, "Oh, good Jesus, you performed a bunch of miracles. You're my beloved Son. I'm so proud of you." No, it happens first, right? Which should speak to you and me as well, that when we're adopted as beloved sons, beloved daughters of our Heavenly Father, that's an identity that we claim only by virtue of God's love for us. Not because of something that you've earned or something that you've done. I don't know if you realize Catholic practice, we usually baptize our kids as babies, right? Well, with all due respect, what has your baby done to deserve such a status? Pooped his pants a couple times, spit up on you, maybe cries and wakes you up in the middle of the night. Yes, you're my beloved Son, I'm well pleased in you, right? The fact is, we didn't do anything to earn such a grace. But what I appreciated so much about Monsignor Shea's conversation about the gift of baptism is not just the fact that we didn't earn it, but what a difference it all makes. Because the conversation, if you get a chance to go back and listen to the talk, seekreplay.com, right? The conversation is largely the bad news, right? Monsignor Shea spends a lot of time telling us how we've been held captive by the enemy, by Satan, who hates us and seeks out our destruction. He traces very clearly the wound of sin that's so present and part of all of our lives, right? And let's be honest, you and I know what the weight of sin is, right? We know that sense of not always feeling good enough, not measuring up. We know some of the habitual stuff that we struggle with, whether it's the resentments or the anger or the gossip or some of the sexual sins that are part of our past or the brokenness that's there, right? We're deeply aware of it, right? And frankly, you sit in the confessional for a couple hours and you hear the shame that encloses us within ourselves, that we don't want to talk about this, we don't want to acknowledge it. It hurts, right? And what I loved about Monsignor Shea's statement is he says, yes, the wound of sin is deep, but deeper still in the heart of your baptized soul is a place where God has chosen to make his dwelling. And I think of like one of those like massive drills, that goes down into the ground. And if you and I took a shovel and started to dig into the ground, let's be honest, all we'd really find at the beginning is maybe some mud and then eventually like clay and perhaps some rock. And just realistically, it's ugly. It's not pretty. It's messy. It stinks, right? But if you go deeper and deeper and deeper still, you know what you might find? Diamonds. You might find gold, right? Because God doesn't give up on us just in the midst of our messiness. The gift of the sacrament of baptism is it digs all the way down into that place where only he can be. And he doesn't do it because you earned it. He doesn't do it because you deserve it. He does it simply and solely out of love for you. You're my beloved son. You're my beloved daughter. I'm proud of you. And you say, but God, you can't be proud of me. Like, I'm broken. I don't deserve this. And he said, but I'm proud of you. I love you. I looked at Jesus before he did any of the redeeming work. And I told him, I'm proud of you. I loved you. And if you and I belong to Jesus, if we've been claimed by Jesus, especially in the gift of our baptism, then the deepest core of our identity as well is God saying, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're always mine.